Welcome everybody, this is Debbie and Jamie from Chalk It Up Fancy. So glad that you can join us as we go through this custom finish that me and Jamie created. So we're going to start by showing you on this adorable little end table. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to remove all the hardware. And then you're going to take the hardware and you're going to put it in soapy warm water with a brush, something like this, or a toothbrush, and you can clean all the hardware and get all the dirt and grime off. Some of this particular hardware and up here, these are fastened by a little nail, and you can take them off if you want to clean them, or if you want to return them back on as metal. In this particular case, we are going to leave them on because me and Jamie will be painting over them. So once you get all the hardware off, there's a few products that you can use. One is half vinegar, half water. It's a little bit more of a natural choice if you have, breathing issues with different chemicals. Another one is crud cutter. You can pretty much find that in any hardware store, any Home Depot or Lowe's, and you could pretty much use all of these products that I'm mentioning the same way that we're going to use the one that we choose, and it's called Totally Awesome, and it's $1 at most Dollar Generals or dollar stores. So Jamie's going to go ahead, and the first thing you do is you spray the entire piece with whatever product of the three that I've stated. These are the three that I would stand behind. And once you spray it on, you're just going to give it a few minutes to let it just start lifting any old pledge, any old grease, finger grease, dirt and grime, as paint will not stick to any of these things. So once you get your piece completely sprayed and you just give it a few minutes to settle in, you're going to take a brush like Jamie has, and you're going to go around and you are going to brush any detail, grooves, crevices that you can see on your piece to make sure that all of the dirt and grime and grease is removed. Once you've completely scrubbed all your cracks, crevices, and hardware, you're now going to take a bowl of dish soap, mild dish soap, and a rag. We recommend Dawn because we feel like it's a good grease cutter, and you're just going to give it a good bath. Okay, so once that's done, you're going to take a new rag and some nice fresh clean water, and you're going to give it a good rinse, because paint does not stick to any products as far as vinegar, soap, or any of these chemicals, so you want to give it a very good rinse so that we get good adhesion with the paint. Once your piece of furniture has been completely rinsed and you're sure it's free of any soaps or cleaners, you are now going to take a towel or paper towel, and you're going to give it a dry, you're just going to wipe it dry to the best that you can. Okay, so now we are very sure that our piece of furniture is extremely clean and it's rinsed off. And at this point in time, you now have to just let it dry. I always give my pieces either 24 hours or more, but at least 24 hours. So we will see you in 24 hours and we will take you to the next step. This is Debbie and Jamie from Chalk It Up Fancy, and we are continuing our project. We have cleaned this end table and now we are going to sand it. It's very important that you sand after you clean, as you do not want to be pushing dust and grime into the wood. So now we know that it's nice and clean and dry. We are going to use a 120 grit sanding block. And Jamie's going to go ahead and just scuff up the entire end table. We are now going to take a microfiber cloth with just a very little bit of water, very little bit, kind of like a dry damp, just to get all the remaining particles and dust off. Now that you've removed all the excess dust, we are going to now take some shellac, clear Zinsser shellac. You can find this at most hardware stores or Home Depots or Lowe's. Some of your other options is Bin 123, or we also use Wise Owl primer, either in a white or a clear. It really depends on what color paint you're going with. We are going to be doing a gray. If I was doing a white, I would definitely probably try a white based primer. So we're going to apply this with Gen foam brush. This you can find mostly at True Value stores. And one of the keys when you are shellacking is that you want to be diligent in catching any drips, any runs. So Jamie has a second brush in her hand that's going to catch any runs that she sees as she's going through adding shellac. You're just going to give it a nice thin coat and make sure you hit every spot. And this should be applied with 2 coats. Shellac dries pretty quickly. Usually after about 20 minutes you can apply your second coat. So you're going to do this 2 times. We're going to let this dry, and then we're going to give it a second coat of the shellac, and then we are going to get started on our first coat of paint. Okay guys, we're getting ready to start the fun part and adding the paint. This particular custom finish that me and Jamie created a few years back actually is Rust-Oleum Chalked Country Gray. So you can pretty much get the Rust-Oleum at True Value or Home Depot. Those are the two places. I think it's about $18 for the quart. And Jamie's going to go ahead and open the Country Gray. I feel this technique can be used with any color gray that you would like. We're just trying to do exactly the finish that we showed you. You just want to make sure you stir your can well. You want to make sure that you are, pulling off of the bottom any debris. You just want to make sure all the minerals and chemicals or whatever's in there gets all nice and mixed together. Okay, so once your paint is mixed, we use paper plates. We're going to put a little bit of paint on a paper plate. And Jamie's going to be applying the paint with a brush and a 2-inch foam roller. The 2-inch foam roller she's going to use mostly for the sides and the top, and the brush she's going to use mostly for the doors and the drawer. We are going to let this dry for 24 hours, and then we're going to put a second coat on. So make sure you put your second coat on, and then we're going to get to the highlighting. Thank you. Welcome everybody. We are now on our final stages of finishing our tutorial on whitewash, or what I call it is highlighting. So we've finished 2 coats of paint, and it's very important that you make sure you follow all the steps up until now, because this is where you don't want to have any issues once you finally put on your highlight. Your final product is only going to be as good as your prep. I know that's not the fun part. This is the fun part, and we're finally here. So I'm going to go through some of the things that you're going to need, and we're going to try and give you a link to each of these things. First off, you're going to need a bottle of water. I prefer these mist sprays. You can get them at Christmas Tree Shop, and you can get them on Amazon. They're usually in the hair product department, and they just are more of a mist versus a water bottle, which I feel gives a little too much water, but you can use a water bottle as well. That works just fine. If you don't want to get your hands dirty, if you're in that situation, use a pair of gloves. I personally do not like wearing gloves, but your hands will be full of paint when you're done with this project. You're going to need paper towels.
lots of paper towels, a garbage can to toss them in. I have baby wipes on hand. They work great for removing paint that you, if you have too much or you want to kind of eliminate, or even your hands. I just like to have them on hand. The color that I used for this finish was Rust-Oleum, and the color is called Chiffon. Back when I created this custom finish, I had to have this particular color mixed at my local hardware store, but I believe now you can get it in a can at Home Depot. In case, but really, I feel like any off-white will work. You don't have to have the exact products, and you don't have to use the gray and the white. You can use any combination that you want. I have used black and white, and it comes out beautifully. And then you're just gonna, I always have a paper plate that will hold my paint. And my favorite brushes are Klingon brushes. The number one reason is you do not lose any bristles. So I'm not gonna have any bristles within my paint. It just applies paint very nice and smooth. The one thing about Klingon brushes is they like to be stored wet. You don't want to use a wet one if you're going to be putting on varnish or anything that's like that. But to apply paint, you can use it wet. You don't have to wait for it to dry. And this is going to be a lot of water anyway. So moving forward, I'm going to stand up so you're not going to see me any longer. But feel free to inbox us at chalkitupfancy.com if you run into any problems or you have any questions. We are here to help you. So I'm going to start with the front. This is usually how I start any of my projects. I start from the top down. If it's a larger piece, maybe a buffet, I would do it in 3 sections. The top down, move to the middle, the top down, then to the end. The reason I go from the top down is as you're putting water on, you're going to get drips. So you don't want to do a finished product down here, and as you're moving up, this is dripping into your finished product. So I'm going to start up here, and I do it with everything intact, with the drawers in, the doors, and I don't have any problem. Just remember at the end, if I forget to tell you, make sure when you're done that you do pop the doors and drawers open so as the paint dries, you're not going to get any issue with them sticking. So I hope you're close enough. I'm trying very hard to make you as close as possible so that you can see everything. I take my water bottle and I give everything a good wet down. I usually will start with a section, and right now it's going to be this top drawer that I want to mist. I take my brush and I give a little load, not too much, and I'm literally going to start putting the paint in. Where I want to be a little bit more heavy is anywhere that you see any crevices or detail. Like this is a metal plate that I left on. I want to really get that heavy with the paint. And you're going to go around and you're going to really fill that in. It looks scary. Now, just so you know, I did not put any top coat, any wax prior to starting this. I feel like I get a better finish when I do that. Then you're going to take your paper towel. Sometimes I'll give it another squirt of water so that it's a little bit more movable, and I literally wipe it back. It's kind of a wipe where you want to take your paper towel and almost make it a little on the taut side. You don't want it all like where you have it all crunched up in raised areas, because you don't want it to get in those crevices. You want it to pass over all those nooks and crannies so that you get the end result is that 90% of your highlighting paint stays in the grooves and the crevices and is lifted from the rest of the paint. Now, it doesn't completely lift from the rest of the paint. You can tell, let me move this a little closer just so you can see it. I am so sorry. I don't want to have to move you guys too much. You can tell it does give a little whimsical, a little bit of a touch of the white throughout the paint, which is kind of what you want because it makes it all blend and come together. And as you go along, if I see a little dripping coming down, if you like that, some people like that drippy look, I will go back and I just blot it like this, as if I'm going and if you're done and you feel like you didn't get enough white in, because when you first do this for the first time, you're probably going to be not heavy enough on the white paint out of fear, and you can most certainly hit it again if you feel like you want to put more paint on. Have it a little bit more heavy, and you can just accentuate those crevices or the nooks and crannies that you want to hit with the paint. Or if you don't want so much, just put a little bit more water on and wipe a little more. You don't want to keep wiping too much, because once your paint starts to really get wet, it could lift a little bit. So that's another thing I wanted to talk about. Remember, I did not sand this paint finish prior to doing this. And the reason is sometimes when you're doing the wiping, some of the paint will lift. If I keep going back and wetting too much, it will start lifting up off some of the areas, but it actually looks like a natural distressing. So I'm not fearful of that. I don't mind when that happens, but I do want to make you aware, if you don't want that to happen, you don't want to keep going back too many times with your water and your paint. You want to kind of know when to leave it alone. So I'm pretty satisfied with the way that looks. So I'm going to keep going on. And guys, I am just going to be repeating what I just did over and over again throughout this entire nightstand. You want to make sure you get it pretty wet, because wherever there's a dry spot, the paint is going to stick to that spot more than where it's white. So see, now I'm going to kind of concentrate on all those nooks and crannies first, because I don't mind if the paint sits there a little bit longer while it's waiting for me to wipe it all over. You just do kind of want it wiped a little bit all over, just so it all blends together. I want to hit this side a little bit. This finish is a wonderful finish because it just takes your piece, I believe, to the next level. It gives it depth and dimension, and it makes it look extremely professional. And I feel like when I do things like this, especially when you're selling furniture, it just makes your piece stand out. Especially in a market where you're in competition with a lot of people doing this. Guys, it's really that simple. And you just want to keep moving to a clean spot on your paper towel, and you want to know when you need to just toss it and get yourself some new. So I want to kind of clean the center up a little bit so that these edges kind of stand out. And guys, there is no right or wrong. You're just going to start doing this, and you're going to keep doing it until you like the look that you're achieving. I am trying to match up a dresser that I sold, and they wanted a pair of nightstands to match. And that's when I thought, well, I'll just come to you guys with a tutorial. Might as well teach you, because I do have a lot of people asking me how I do this. And it's not completely easy to explain. It's easy kind of to show. So here we are. Okay. So now I'm going back to the bottom here, because there's a groove that comes from from the leg that comes all the way across the bottom. And these are the things that you want to bring out. So I'm going to go heavy right down that line and then just wisp. I'm going to hit this side. Sometimes I go and I give it a little miss because I kind of want to make sure that it lifts, and I want to make sure my towel is nice and flat so that I completely miss grabbing that crevice that comes across the bottom. Hope you guys can see that. Okay. So I'm going to come on this side. I just have to take care of this corner and then I'll turn it to the side. And I'm going to do this whole thing with you so you see me do it enough times that you feel completely confident in doing it yourself. And of course, feel free to watch this multiple times. You want to make sure you get inside the legs so that it all blends. You can leave on as much or as little as you want. Again, I'm taking a little bit more off because I'm trying to match something that I have previously done. So I'm trying to make sure that I do it the way that one was. But it looks very pretty when you leave it heavy, you know, in some areas. It gives it that imperfect, shabby chic look, in my opinion. Guys, and remember, it's just paint. You're not going to mess anything up. If you don't like your results, I could just go and paint this gray again and redo it. So the only way you're going to get good at this technique is to just do it. I found it was very easy for me. So instead of moving you, I'm going to try to move my piece of furniture here so you can see me continue. I'm going to need a little bit more paint. Okay, again, I'm going to start at the top. This side is not going to take me long because it doesn't have the doors, so I'm just going to wet the whole thing right from the beginning and get it all done in one shot. Again, you're going to just dip a little bit. These brushes just load very well. If you're interested in any of the Klingon brushes, they are available on our webpage at chalkitupfancy.com. They have all different sizes, all different shapes. They have oval, round, flat. So right there, you see how I have a little excess water here, and I'm just going to come over and you just blot it. Turn down my light just a tad. Sometimes too much light, you can't see. Okay. Okay. Guys, a great thing to practice on if you're one of those people that feels nervous is if you have any furniture that has, instead of throwing the whole thing out, if you keep the drawers, a lot of drawers have some detail on them, and sometimes that's a great thing to practice on. So I think I want to accentuate this line just a little bit more. So I'm going to go back a little drier and put it right where I want it. You can be very specific with this, okay? And while it's, just want to make sure your paper towel is clean and on the flat side so it doesn't get into that groove. So you see how I just brought that line right out by going a little heavier and a little drier. I'm going to turn this to the other side. Okay. I'm going to walk around. I work better from this angle, showing you. I always do the top last. I'm going to go a little heavier in these crevices, and then I'm going to take the remainder of the paint on my brush, and now I know I want to go a little heavier with that line because I've done it now 3 or 4 times. Make sure you're getting the inside of the leg so it all blends. I feel like this light is not helping me. Okay. Again, make sure you know that you have to dump that paper towel and get a dry one once you feel like it's, you can't wipe it off with a wet spot. It'll take it completely off. You want your paper towel to be dry. So once you know you've used it to its, to where it's not dry on all sides, you gotta know when to dump it. Okay. See this? Now, it's going to be hard for me to show you the top. The top is pretty flat. So I'm just going to hit the whole entire top with water. I'm going to see if I can... I'm going to move this down. Sorry about my butt. Okay. Okay, I want to make sure you guys see everything so you can walk away feeling completely like I know how to do that. So I just hit the whole top. Take my brush. And now I'm going to accentuate all around this edge. This is where I'm going to want it to be heavy. And there's a little indent, a little trim that goes around, a little routed out, little trim. And I'm just going to take excess and go right across the top. Okay. I'm going to hit this again with a little bit of water so it lifts for me the first time. I'm going to make my paper towel flat and taut, and I'm going to go around the top edge first. And I'm just going to take big wipes. Making sure every time I wipe, I have a dry spot on my paper towel that I'm using. The minute I have no more dry spots left, you got to get a new piece. So you are going to go through a lot of paper towels with this, and they work better than cloth. I've tried it, and I do use Bounty. And if you get a little bit of lint, when this all dries, if you take a very high grit sandpaper, like I'm talking 1,000 or over, or if you just take a cotton cloth and give it a, you know, wipe it, most of that comes right off. I don't ever really have a problem with it, with the lint staying on. It's just you gotta wait till it completely dries. So, you can see this, the final. It up for you just a little bit and get it nice and close. So you see how it just makes all the crevices pop. And I'm going to do a professional photo at the end so you guys can see how pretty it looks. The next time we're together, I'm going to show you how I do my final top coat. Okay guys, we are now moving on to some form of a top coat. There's a lot of different top coats that I use for different reasons, but on this particular project, I am going to use Annie Sloan's, her clear wax. I like to use a big floppy brush. And again, you're gonna need paper towels or a cotton rag of some sort. So you're basically gonna put a little bit on your brush, and with Annie Sloan, less is best. So you're just gonna be kind of doing a back and forth motion. And again, you may not get full coverage your first application. You definitely can do 2 coats of this. And you're basically just applying it in this fashion. I have tried other brands of wax, and I just feel like Annie's gives a nice, when it dries, it just has a nice smooth finish. And again, less is best. If you feel like you need more, you can always go back and do a second application. It's really quite easy. So normally I would like apply on the complete front, then I would buff it, and then I would go to the sides and then to the top. you want to make sure that there's at least 24 hours after your last coat of paint to make sure everything's nice and dry before applying this. So once I've filled an area, I'm going to take a paper towel and you're just going to go around and give it a buff. Really quite simple, guys. Just basically apply and buff. And I would probably wait 24 hours before you apply a second coat. It is a little bit of a workout. Okay. So when you're done with the front, you're just going to basically do the same exact thing on the sides and on the top. And if you feel like you need more than the one coat, you can get your second coat in. I like to wait 24 hours between mostly anything I do, only because temperature and a lot of things come into play when things are drying and getting the best results. And especially coming into summer, I just prefer to just give it that time to dry. And you can do like a circular motion too, guys. Kind of like this motion. And you get pretty good coverage by doing that. So it's just put on and buff off. And then you really don't, you want to try not to touch it too much, so you don't get any fingerprints or anything like that. And even when you go to dust, like say you put a piece in your home, when you need to dust your furniture, you don't ever want to put pledge or anything like that on. And you just take a cloth and you buff it, and it just refreshes it. Okay, so now that I showed you that, I feel like you don't have to watch me do the entire thing. It's pretty basic. Brush it on, brush it off. Now, you notice the gold on the finish that was our inspiration for this piece. And I use, this is from Redesign, and it's gilding wax. Okay, and this is where we're going to get our gold. So this is what it looks like inside the jar, and it comes in all different colors. It comes in white, black, gold, silver, and bronze. And you're just going to get a little bit on your finger. I prefer to use a bare finger. You can wear gloves. I just feel like I get better results with a finger. And I'm going to move you just a little bit closer so you can see. And I'm going to pay attention to things like this. The hardware, you can put it on your hinges if you want. You can run it along anything that you want. And you're basically gonna just rub your finger along the raised detail. And that's what it's gonna look like. Now, as you could see, this is why you wanna do your clear wax first. Wax takes off wax. So I got a little bit on the door here. So I'm gonna use some clear wax. If you get it somewhere that you don't want it, you're just gonna take a little bit of clear wax and that'll buff right off. Okay. And when you're done adding that, you can give it a buff or you can leave it. It's whatever you want to do, however you want it to look. So again, I'm putting a little bit on my finger. And this takes about a day or two to completely dry where you feel it won't lift. Now after you always want to do this last, because now if I go back and put clear wax on this, it's going to take this wax right off. So you definitely want this to be your last step. And there's all kinds of things you can do with gilding wax. And it just gives your piece a little special touch. Now I'm going to back you up a little bit because I'm going to do this hardware. And you're going to see this one's really pretty because it has, and the wax is just grabbing anything raised. And it just gives it a very cool look. So I'm going to bring you up a little closer. So see how you can still see the gray in there, and it just gives it a very special finish. And again, you can get this in so many colors. I'm trying not to move you guys too much. Okay? So you can do things as well as you can run a bead down the edge of a drawer. I'm doing this very lightly, and I'll show you when I'm done. And see, you can edge off something. There's lots that you can do with gilding wax. You can do as much or as little as you want, and it just brings your piece to another level. Another thing I'm going to do, and you can use gilding wax on, is hardware. So I'm trying to match this with another dresser. So this is just a bronze hardware. And I put the gilding wax on my finger. And I'm just running it around the detail. And see? This is before and this is after. So isn't that really pretty? Especially if you're selling furniture, it just gives your piece just that little extra touch of fancy. I have another piece of hardware that's going to be down here for that piece. And again, it's just plain bronze. I'm going to take my gilding wax, dip my finger in there, get some of my finger. And it just gives it this aged look. And you don't want it to be perfect. You just want it to, I mean, I can cover this whole thing in it if I want, but I kind of like it when the bronze is peeking through. It just gives depth, dimension. And again, I would definitely want this to dry for 24 hours, definitely 2 days before you start really manhandling it. So, I hope this video helped. I hope that you guys try this finish on a piece that you have. And if you have any questions, feel free to email us at chalkitupfancy.com and we will answer any of your questions pertaining to this finish. Or if you run into any issues or something that doesn't seem clear to you, please contact us. We want to help you succeed, okay? Thank you so much. I hope this was enjoyable and I hope it was helpful. Take care.